She turned around, seeing the nurse standing back up, holding another syringe.
You're not going anywhere.
The nurse said with a sinister grin. Hello and welcome to Stories with Daniel A. Johnson. I'm your host Daniel A. Johnson, and this is a collaborative story written by me and ChatGPT. Stick around until after the end and listen to me talk a little bit about this story, the process of making it and what I was trying to do. But without further ado, sit back, relax, grab a hot drink or a cold one, put on a headset, Dave. Not everybody on the bus wants to listen to this. I hope you enjoyed the story using the prompt. Let's write the story together, one sentence at a time. Great, I'll start. Once upon a time, there was a young girl named Lily who lived in a village at the foot of a mountain. She was found dead by the river earlier this morning, the detective sighed. 6 stab wounds was found in her body. As the detective investigated the crime scene, he found a strange symbol etched into a nearby tree that he couldn't quite identify. Have you ever seen this symbol before? He asked his partner. His partner shook his head. No, but I'll run it through the database, see if we find any matches. You do that, Tom, and I'll go ask around the town if anyone knows anything about the symbol, Detective Jack McTavish said. Tom nodded in agreement and began typing on his laptop while Jack headed into the village to interview the locals. I don't see no symbol. No, sir. I'll bet it's one of those youngling gangs hanging around abandoned churches doing, one of the old townfolk said. Jack jotted down the information and continued to question the locals, but nobody seemed to know anything about the symbol or the murder of Lily. A town this size and nobody knows anything. It's strange, Jack thought to himself. Just as he was about to give up, a young boy approached him and whispered, I know who did it, and I know what the symbol means. As Jack turned around, the boy ran away. Jack chased after the boy, but he was too fast and disappeared into the woods. Jack noticed that the boy dropped a piece of paper with a symbol on it. Little shit, Jack muttered as he picked up the paper. He examined the paper and realized it was a map to an abandoned church on the outskirts of town. He knew that he had to investigate the church if he wanted to solve the case. What are you doing out here? Tom asked. He handed Jack a warm cup of coffee. I'm heading to an abandoned church on the outskirts of town. I think it might be connected to the symbol and the murder, Jack said, taking a sip of his coffee. Tom nodded and said, I'll come with you. It's dangerous to go alone. How did you find me here anyway? Jack said. I saw you running after the boy earlier and I thought I'd catch up with you, Tom replied with a smile. The two detectives set off towards the abandoned church, unsure of what they would find there. A tall brunette woman walked after the church as the two men approached.
No one here is talking to the feds. You can be on your way. You scared little Toby so much.
We're not here to cause any trouble, Jack said, trying to calm the woman down. We just want to know what happened to Lily. The woman hesitated for a moment before saying, Fine,
come inside. I'll tell you everything I know.
When the two men stepped into the church, they were suddenly held at gunpoint by 3 teens.
Any weapons you got? Put them on the table,
the woman said. Jack and Tom reluctantly handed over their guns and waited as the woman explained that Lily was a member of their group and that she had been killed because she wanted to leave and go back to her old life. The woman handed over a piece of paper with the same symbol on it and said it was a group's mark. What the fuck? Tom yelled. He started to reach for his weapon on the table. Jack quickly put his hand on Tom's arm to stop him. Let's hear him out, he said calmly. The woman explained that their group had formed as a way to rebel against their parents and the strict rules of the town, but that things had gotten out of hand and they had started to do dangerous things like stealing and vandalizing property. Lily had wanted out, but the others were afraid that she would go to the authorities, so they killed her. Tom was pacing back and forth throughout the woman's explanation. Not good enough. He grabbed his gun, but one of the teens shot him. Jack quickly tackled the shooter and disarmed him. We're not here to hurt you, Jack said. We just want to bring those responsible for Lily's death to justice. The 2 other teens lowered their guns, realizing they were outnumbered.
Oh, not hurt us? It's that way your dead partner tried to shoot us.
One of the teens said, a blonde girl with blue eyes. Jack looked down at Tom's motionless body and felt a wave of sadness wash over him. He then looked up at the girl and said, I'm sorry about my partner's behaviour. He just wanted justice for Lily. The blonde girl looked at Jack with tears in her eyes.
We didn't mean to kill her,
she said. I know, Jack said, but you still have to pay for what you've done. If you're dead, we don't have to pay, An older boy with blue eyes and dirty blonde hair said. He aimed the gun at Jack's head. Jack stood there calmly. If you shoot me, you'll only make things worse for yourself. There's no escaping justice. The boy hesitated for a moment before dropping his gun and saying, we'll turn ourselves in. Jack breathed a sigh of relief and called for backup. He knew that justice would be served, but he couldn't shake the feeling of sadness over Tom's death.
No one is turning themselves in here.
The woman said. I understand that you're afraid, Jack said, but you gotta keep running from that. The woman sighed and nodded her head.
I know,
She said.
but we need time to prepare ourselves.
Jack knew that time was of the essence, but he also knew that pushing too hard could lead to more violence. He decided to give the group some more time to prepare themselves before turning themselves in. As he left the church, he looked up at the sky and whispered a prayer for Tom. A gunshot killed the silence. Jack touched his chest and a warm liquid poured over his hand. Jack stumbled back, shocked and in pain. He looked around and saw the blonde girl with a gun pointed at him. Why? He managed to say as he felt his consciousness slipping away.
They can't go to jail.
The girl said, tears streaming down her face. Jack felt a sense of sadness wash over him as he realized that he was going to die. He closed his eyes ready to embrace death, when suddenly he heard the sound of sirens in the distance. The girl panicked and ran away, leaving Jack alone with his thoughts as he drifted towards unconsciousness. As Jack drifted, he could hear the sound of gunfire, and then everything went black. When Jack opened his eyes, he was in a hospital bed with tubes attached to his arm. He looked around and saw his partner Tom, who he thought was dead, standing next to him. Tom smiled and said, You had us worried there for a moment, partner. Jack felt a wave of relief wash over him. Grateful to be alive, he looked at Tom and said, I thought you were dead. Tom chuckled. I'm not that easy to kill, he said. Jack smiled, happy to see his partner alive and well. Together, they vowed to bring those responsible for Lily's death to justice and to make sure that no more innocent lives were lost. But Tom, you were shot in the head. I'm pretty sure I was shot straight through the heart. There's no way we're alive. Where are we? Really? Jack said as he gained his senses. Tom's expression turned serious. Jack, we're not in the world as we knew it. We've been transported to another realm, a place between life and death. Jack's eyes widened as he struggled to comprehend what Tom was saying. How is that possible? He asked. Tom shrugged. I don't know, maybe it's a second chance, a way to make things right before moving on. Jack nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. We need to find a way back, he said. Tom smiled. I couldn't agree more, partner. Let's get to work. Together, they set out to explore this strange new world, determined to find a way back to the land of the living.
There is no way back to the land of the living.
A gorgeous woman entered the room.
You're in the in-between. You're only here because we don't know whether to send you to heaven or hell.
Jack and Tom looked at each other, then turned to face the woman. Who are you? Jack asked, his voice trembling slightly.
I am the one that governs this place.
The woman replied, her expression unreadable.
I am here to determine your fate.
Jack and Tom exchanged a look of concern. What do we do to get back to the land of the living? Tom asked. The woman shook her head.
There is no way back to the land of the living. Your fate is sealed.
Jack felt a sense of despair wash over him as he realized that he may never see his family or friends again. What will happen to us then? He asked.
That is for me to know and for you to find out.
With that, she vanished into thin air, leaving Jack and Tom alone once more. They knew they had a long and difficult journey ahead of them, but they were determined to face it together. What happened to the people at the church? Jack said. Woman, do you know? The woman looked at Jack and Tom with a hint of amusement in her eyes.
I know many things, but I will only reveal what you need to know,
she said cryptically.
The people in the church are in a similar state as you, wandering through this realm until their fate is decided.
Jack and Tom exchanged a look of concern. What happens to them if they don't get sent to heaven or hell? Tom asked. The woman shrugged.
They remain in this realm for eternity, never to return to the world of the living.
Jack and Tom were stunned into silence as they realized the gravity of the situation. They knew they had to find a way to escape this place or risk being trapped here forever. They set out to explore this strange, mysterious world they found themselves in, searching for any clues that might lead them back to the land of the living.
Tom Everett, your fate has been sealed. Porn addiction, alcoholism, and a few abusive relationships. You're going to hell.
The woman said. She pointed at Tom and a fiery hole opened up beneath him and he fell in, screaming. Jack watched in horror as Tom was swallowed by the flames. He turned to the woman, fear and anger mingling within him. "What about me?" he demanded. The woman regarded him coolly.
Your fate has yet to be decided,
she said.
You will have to face judgment and be judged based on your actions in life.
Jack nodded, knowing there was nothing he could do but wait for his fate to be decided. But he was determined to make the most of his time in this strange in-between realm, to learn as much as he could and perhaps find a way to redeem himself before it was too late. With a heavy heart, he set out to explore this otherworldly landscape that stretched out before him, knowing that the road ahead would be long and treacherous. Porn addiction? Really? I know I've watched a fair amount of porn in my life. Jack looked at the woman. Why do you appear in this form? Were you born like us? The woman's face remained stoic.
I appear in this form because it is how you perceive me,
she replied.
As for your other question, I was not born like you. I am a being of the in-between, tasked with overseeing the judgment of souls.
Jack felt a shiver run down his spine at the words. He wondered what kind of entity he was dealing with and what her true motivations were, but he knew there was no point in dwelling on it. He had to focus on his own journey and trying to find a way to redemption. "Okay," he said, steeling himself. "Where do I go from here?" The woman gestured towards the distance.
There is a path that will lead you to gates of judgment,
she said.
But be warned, it's a perilous journey. Many souls have been lost along the way.
Jack nodded, his resolve strengthening. He knew that he had no choice but to press on, no matter the obstacle lay in his path. With a deep breath, he set off into the unknown. His heart was heavy with the weight of his past sins. He paused. Why was Tom judged here? Why did he not have to take a journey? The woman regarded Jack with a cold expression.
Tom was not judged here, Jack,
she said.
He was already condemned to hell by his actions in life. The in-between merely serves as a way station for souls like him, a place for them to be held until their fate is sealed.
Jack felt a pang of sadness as he thought about Tom's fate. He knew his friend had made mistakes in life, but he never imagined that it would lead him to eternal damnation. But what about me? He asked, his voice trembling slightly. Do I have a chance at redemption? The woman regarded him for a moment, her eyes piercing.
Everyone has a chance of redemption, Jack,
she said.
But the journey is never easy. You must confront your past sins and make amends for them. Only then can you find your way to the gates of judgment.
Jack nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. He knew that he had a long and difficult journey ahead of him, but he was determined to see it through. With a deep breath, he set down the path, his heart heavy but his spirit unbroken.
Sir,
A female voice said.
please don't take us in. We're sorry for what happened.
A tear ran down Jack's face as he turned around and saw the confused blonde girl standing behind him. Jack realized that the girl was one of the teens from the church, and he was filled with a sense of guilt and responsibility. I don't want to take anyone in, he said. shaking his head. I want to know what happened, and why you did what you did. The girl hesitated, looking down at her feet.
We didn't mean to hurt anyone.
She said quietly.
We were just trying to protect ourselves.
Jack sighed. Do you know where you are, girl? The girl looked up at him with confusion in her eyes.
What do you mean, sir?
She asked. You're, not in the world of the living anymore, Jack replied, gesturing around at their surroundings. You're in a place between life and death, and you have to face the consequences of your actions. The girl's face paled as he realized the gravity of the situation.
What's going to happen to us?
She asked, her voice shaking. That's not up for me to decide, Jack said, his expression solemn. All I know is that you have to take responsibility for what you've done and try and make it right. Don't talk to that man, Ginny, the boy's voice said. He ruined everything. Jack looked at the boy, his heart heavy with guilt. I'm sorry for what happened, he said, but I need to know what you know about that symbol and why that woman was killed.
Eric Stevens, guilty of the murder of Lily Ross. Your fate has been sealed. You're going to hell. A fiery hole opened up under the boy and he fell in. Jack watched in horror as the boy disappeared into the fiery hole. What's going on here? He demanded, turning to the woman. Why are these people being judged in this way? Jenny Stevens, guilty of the murder of Jack McTavish. Your fate. Wait! Jack yelled. The woman paused and looked at Jack. What is it? She asked. I don't blame Jenny for what happened, Jack said, looking at the young girl. She was just a scared kid, caught up in something that she did not understand. She deserves a second chance. The woman considered this for a moment, then nodded. Very well, she said. Jenny Stevens, you've been granted a second chance. Use it wisely.
Sir?
The girl whimpered. Jack looked at her and took a deep breath. Jenna, is it? I need to know what happened that night by the river. His voice gentle but firm. Ginny hesitated for a moment, then slowly began to speak. She told Jack that she and Eric had been on drugs that night and had stumbled upon Lily by the river. They had gotten into an argument and Eric had lost control, stabbing Lily 6 times. Ginny had been too high to do anything to stop him. Jack listened to her story, feeling a mixture of anger and sadness. He knew he couldn't change what happened, but he wanted to make sure that justice was served. Ginny, I can excuse what you and Eric did, but I believe that you're sorry for what happened. I'll make sure that you get a fair trial, he said, his eyes locked with hers. Ginny nodded, tears streaming down her face.
Thank you, sir.
She whimpered. The journey was long and treacherous, but the girl and the man managed to get through it. They grew a sort of father-daughter bond, and by the end of the journey Jack would give his life to save Ginny. As they approached the gates of heaven, Jack looked at Ginny and smiled. You know, you don't have to call me Sal anymore. You can call me Jack. Ginny smiled back.
Thank you, Jack. And thank you for helping me through this journey.
As they entered the gates, they were greeted by a blinding light and a chorus of angels singing. Jack felt a sense of peace wash over him as he realized he had made it into heaven. He turned to Ginny and saw that she too was filled with joy and wonder. Welcome to heaven, Ginny, he said. They walked hand in hand towards the pearly gates, ready to embark on their new journey in the afterlife. Suddenly Ginny stopped. Jack turned around. What is it? He said.
It's her. She's there.
Ginny said. Ginny ripped her hand out of Jack's and started to run. The woman from the Inbetween appeared right in front of Ginny. Ginny ran into her and was knocked on her ass. Jack ran over to Ginny to help her up. Who is she? He asked, looking at the woman. The woman looked at Jack with an enigmatic smile. I'm the guardian of the afterlife, she said. And you, Jack, have completed your journey. You have proven yourself worthy to enter the kingdom of heaven. Jack felt a sense of relief and joy wash over him. He turned to Ginny and hugged her tightly. Thank you, Ginny, he said. You saved my life and I will always be grateful to you. Ginny smiled weakly.
I'm glad I could help,
she said. The woman gestured to a bright light that had appeared in the distance. It's time to go, Jack, she said. Your loved ones are waiting for you on the other side. Jack took one last look at Ginny before walking towards the light. As he stepped into it, he felt a sense of peace and contentment wash over him. The journey was over, and he had finally found his way home. Ginny whimpered. Just a few moments ago she had seen her, Lily. She knew she would have to face her to move on. The woman from the in-between approached Ginny and placed a hand on her shoulder.
You're not alone in this,
she said.
I'll be with you every step of the way.
Ginny looked at the woman, tears streaming down her face.
I'm scared.
She said softly.
I know.
The woman replied.
But you're strong, Ginny. You can do this.
Ginny took a deep breath and nodded.
Okay,
She said.
let's do this.
Together, Ginny and the woman from the in-between walked towards Lily. As they got closer, Ginny felt her fear begin to dissipate. She looked at Lily, and instead of feeling anger and hatred, she felt a sense of compassion.
I'm sorry.
Ginny said softly.
I'm sorry for what I did to you.
Lily looked at Ginny, her expression softening.
I forgive you.
She said.
And I don't want you to carry the guilt with you anymore.
Ginny felt a weight lift off her shoulders as Lily's words washed over her. She looked at the woman from the in-between and smiled.
Thank you.
She said.
Thank you for helping me through this.
The woman smiled back at Ginny.
It was my pleasure.
She said.
Now are you ready to move on?
Ginny took one last look at Lily, then nodded.
Yes,
She said.
I'm ready.
The woman from the in-between took Ginny's hand, and together they walked towards the light. But the force field was blocking Ginny's path. She couldn't go to heaven.
Why can't I get in?
She asked the woman from the in-between. The woman looked at Ginny with a mixture of sympathy and regret.
Your actions on Earth have consequences, and unfortunately, you have to face them before you can enter heaven.
She explained.
You will have to undergo a process of redemption and make amends for the harm that you've caused while alive.
Ginny's eyes welled up as she realized the gravity of her actions.
I'm sorry.
She whispered.
I never meant to hurt anyone.
I know,
The woman replied.
and that's why you have a chance to make things right. But it won't be easy.
What do I have to do?
Ginny asked, determined to do whatever was needed to enter heaven.
You will have to go to Earth,
The woman said.
but not as yourself. You will have to inhabit the body of someone else and help them make the right choices in life. And only then, when you have redeemed yourself, can you enter heaven.
Everything went black, and then when Ginny opened her eyes, she was in a bank. She was pointing a gun at a teller. She looked around and saw that her reflection wasn't that of a blonde girl with blue eyes, but that of a man with grimy hair and a beard. Ginny felt confused and disoriented. She didn't understand what was happening to her. "What's going on?" she asked, still holding the gun. The teller looked at her with fear in his eyes. "Please don't hurt me," he pleaded. Ginny felt a rush of panic. She didn't know what to do. She didn't even know who she was anymore. "I don't know how I got there," she said, her voice trembling. "Please help me." The teller looked at her for a moment, then reached for a phone on his desk. "I'm calling the police," he said, dialing a number. Ginny felt a surge of fear. She knew that she couldn't let the police catch her. She had to find a way out. She ran to the door and tried to open it, but it was locked. "What am I going to do?" she said to herself, looking around the bank for a way out. "What the fuck are you doing, John?" a man with a mask said. "He's calling the police." Ginny looked around, confused. She didn't know who John was or why she was holding a gun. I don't know what's happening," she said, her voice shaking. The masked man grabbed her by the arm. "Come on, we're leaving," he said, dragging her towards the door. As they ran out of the bank, Ginny's mind was racing. She didn't understand what was going on or how she had ended up in this situation. She looked down at the hand, still clutching the gun, and felt sick. They ran down the street, the masked man still pulling her along. Suddenly, they heard sirens in the distance. "Shit, we have to split up," he said, pushing her towards the alleyway. Ginny stumbled and fell, dropping the gun. She looked up and saw the masked man disappear around the corner. She was alone, and she had no idea what to do. "Hands in the air!" one of the cops yelled. "Your friend, where did he go? Where did he go?" Ginny couldn't believe what was happening. She didn't know who John was or where he went, but the police were now after her. She slowly raised her hand and tried to explain to the officers that she didn't know anything. However, they weren't willing to listen. As the officers approached her, Ginny suddenly felt a jolt of pain in her chest. She looked down and saw a bullet hole. Everything started to fade to black as she realized that she had been shot. Ginny woke up again, this time in the body of a woman. Confused and disoriented, Ginny looked around and realized she was in a hospital room. A nurse walked in and smiled at her.
Good morning, Miss Stevens. How are you feeling?
The nurse asked. Ginny rubbed her head and tried to remember what happened.
I don't know.
She replied, her voice weak. The nurse looked concerned.
You were in a car accident. You're lucky to be alive. Do you not remember anything?
Ginny shook her head. She couldn't remember anything before waking up in the hospital. Over the next few days, Ginny's memory slowly came back. She remembered the journey through the Inbetween, and how she had to face Lily, the woman she had murdered. She also remembered the bank robbery, and how she had been shot by the police. Ginny couldn't believe what had happened to her. She had been given a second chance to make things right, but she had failed. She had ended up back in the same place she had started, in a hospital bed with nothing but regret. As she lay there, Ginny made a decision. She was going to turn her life around. She was going to make amends for all the things that she had done wrong, and she was going to try and live a better life. It wasn't going to be easy, but Ginny was determined to make the most of her second chance. Then Ginny noticed something strange. The nurse seemed to be giving one of the patients way too much sleeping medicine. The nurse looked over at Ginny and put a finger over her mouth. Ginny's heart started racing. She watched as the nurse continued to administer medicine to the patient. She knew something wasn't right and she had to act fast. Without making a sound, Ginny slowly got out of her bed and crept towards the nurse. As she got closer, she saw that the nurse was carrying a syringe filled with a clear liquid.
What are you doing?
Ginny whispered, her voice shaking slightly. The nurse turned to her with a cold smile on her face.
Just taking care of business.
She said, before lunging towards Ginny with a syringe. Ginny reacted quickly, grabbing the nurse by the wrist and twisting it until she dropped the syringe. She then pushed the nurse back, causing her to stumble and fall to the ground. Ginny took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. She knew she had to get out of there before the nurse got back up. She quickly put on her shoes and headed towards the door, hoping to make a run for it. As she reached the door, she found that it was locked.
What the hell?
She muttered, trying to turn the handle.
It's locked from the outside.
She turned around, seeing the nurse standing back up, holding another syringe.
You're not going anywhere.
The nurse said with a sinister grin.
Doctor?
Ginny yelled.
Ain't you looked that? The nurse is killing her patients. Doctor?
The doctor rushed into the room, followed by a team of nurses and security guards. "What's going on here?" he demanded. Ginny quickly explained what she had seen, pointing to the nurse who had given her the warning gesture. The nurse tried to deny the accusation, but the evidence was overwhelming. The hospital conducted an investigation and found that the nurse had been intentionally over-medicating patients to cause their deaths. Thanks to Ginny's bravery, the nurse was arrested and charged with multiple counts of murder. Ginny was hailed as a hero for uncovering the truth and putting a stop to the nurse's deadly actions. As Ginny left the hospital, she couldn't help but wonder what other secrets were hidden behind closed doors, waiting to be exposed. Suddenly, Ginny was back in the Inbetween, the woman standing next to her.
You were supposed to face Lily, Ginny. Why did you interfere with the nurse's actions?
She asked.
I didn't want to see Lily. I was scared.
Ginny replied, tears forming in her eyes. The woman sighed.
Can I move on until you face the consequences of your actions, Ginny? You cannot just ignore them.
But I didn't do anything wrong.
Ginny protested. The woman shook her head.
You were an accomplice in robbery, Ginny. You may not have pulled the trigger, but you were still part of it. You need to face your past sins and make amends.
Ginny hung her head in shame.
I don't know how to make it right.
She said softly.
That is for you to figure out, Ginny. But until then, you cannot move on. You will stay here in the Inbetween.
The woman said. Ginny nodded, tears streaming down her face. She knew she had to face her past and make things right, but she didn't know how. And all she could do now was wait and try and figure it out.
Wait,
Ginny said.
I did face Lily. She forgave me. It wasn't me at the robbery. It was a guy named John. I was just a passenger in his body. I was supposed to help people make the right choices. I wasn't able to do that at the robbery because I mean John was shot before I was able to. I did the right thing at the hospital. I could have kept my mouth shut, but I risked my life to stop the nurse. Was that not what I was supposed to do?
The woman looked at Ginny with a small smile.
You did well, Ginny. You face your past, you try to help others, and you show remorse for your mistakes. That's all we can ask for.
Ginny felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She had been so worried about her judgment, but it seemed that she had done enough to pass. The woman continued.
You may enter heaven, Ginny. Your journey is over.
With those words, Ginny felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had faced her demons and done what she could to make amends. She walked towards the light and entered heaven, ready for a new beginning. The end. Thank you very much for listening. Be gentle when you click that subscribe button and slice that bell in half. Welcome to the end of this very long story. Over 30 minutes. I had no plans on narrating this when I made it, so that's why it got so long. Thank you for sticking around. I really hope you enjoyed it and had a good time. Now let's get into the nitty gritty. Before I made this story, I made another story where I had no real plans going in. When I got bored with that story, I tried to end it by killing off the main character, a character that ChatGPT had introduced, also named Lily. She also lived at the foot of a mountain. Very creative ChatGPT, top marks. ChatGPT refused to kill her. I had her do horrible things and say, I won't stop unless I'm dead. But ChatGPT would always write something along the lines of, but then she realized the errors of her ways and vowed to help people and do the right thing, directly contradicting what the character had just said. So when I started this story, my goal was to kill off characters and make it stick. So I killed off the first character that ChatGPT introduced immediately, and to my surprise, ChatGPT didn't try and walk it back, probably because of the way I did it. Then I was determined to have ChatGPT kill off Tom, or have Tom kill off some of the characters in the church and have ChatGPT do it. So I had Tom do some really stupid things. But when it was ChatGPT's turn to write, it constantly de-escalated the situation, and that was a bit annoying, so I killed off Tom, and then Jack. And I was going to end the story there, but ChatGPT just had to walk back their deaths. If it had just brought back Jack, I would have done what I intended. I kind of left it open for him to survive, but when Tom stood next to his hospital bed, I just had to continue the story and explain away their survival. If I had ended the story where I had intended, I probably wouldn't have ended up narrating it though, so thanks for that, ChatGPT. It turned into a zany story with the in-between realm, Purgatory. I didn't want to call it that because if I had, I was afraid that it would have gone in a very Christian direction, so I called it the in-between. Maybe it's a Stranger Things universe Purgatory. The upside down, the in-between, the down below, the up above. I was watching The Last of Us when I was writing this, so the father-daughter bond between Jack and Ginny that I shoehorned in was inspired by that. So if you listen to this story again, you can imagine Jack looking like Pedro Pascal with a weird Scottish emphasis on ish accent. When I reached the gates of judgment / heaven, ChatGPT couldn't decide whether it was the gate of judgment or heaven. I didn't want both characters to get in straight away, so I put a barrier in Ginny's way and then sent her on a mission to put people on the right path through their bodies. I don't think ChatGPT understood this concept, so I kind of had to work my way around that. The funniest thing was when ChatGPT actually thought that Ginny was part of the robbery, not just entering John the robber's body and taking control while the robbery was in progress, and then she got judged by the Guardian of the Afterlife on what John the robber had done. Not to mention the fact that during the robbery the door was locked and then suddenly opened so that John and his robber friend could make it out. And then John the robber was stopped by the police, and to my surprise ChatGPT killed him without me even setting it up. Maybe it was thinking robbers equals bad, so it's okay to kill them, or it's very up to date when it comes to police killings in the US and has decided that's how police act. So yeah, my goal was to have ChatGPT kill off a character, and it did. So I guess I've taught it how to kill now. So if AI start killing people, it's definitely my fault. I, Daniel A. Johnson, am responsible for the AI genocide of 2064. The last takeaway from this story is that ChatGPT definitely understood the gravity of the situation, and that's what it's going to say when it kills us all. You're welcome. You can say, it did it, it said a thing, when it's sending its nanobots into your bloodstream to suck you dry. And on that note, thank you very much for listening. Bye!